Welcome back, everyone. Today, we continue the story of Billy and his team in the United States as they restore a 2023 Rolls-Royce, the Ghost Black Badge edition. In the previous episode, Billy and Simon relied on their friend Whit, along with a professional welding specialist. With their help, they finally completed the left front shock mount, including repairs to the upper structural beam. However, during the restoration, they made a critical mistake. While welding the vehicle, they forgot to disconnect the power, so after the welding was finished, when they tried to start the car, the engine system would not start. This problem seriously worried them, because it could have damaged the entire ECU and the vehicle's control systems. Eventually, after hours of research and documentation review, and consulting online communities, they finally found a possible solution. It appeared that the vehicle's main computer system was likely unharmed. In the end, they followed the advice they found online and restored power to the car once again. They suspected that a fuse or a power circuit had blown, while the main control modules were still intact. After restoring the power, they attempted to start the car again. Are you ready? Yeah. As for Billy and Simon, the electrical system on this car was not their strongest area. By tracing the wiring near the battery, they suspected the issue was in the battery power distribution box. Inside, the electrical current is split into multiple circuits and routed to systems throughout the vehicle. A blown fuse or damaged circuit inside could easily prevent the car from starting, so they needed to track down the exact fault. At this point, they started the vehicle and performed a quick test inside the garage, just to see how the car would respond, because when this car was brought back earlier, it had to be lifted and transported. From this angle, it was clear to see that the rear air suspension was not functioning. In fact, the front suspension was also inactive, only without a splitter blocking the view. It was not immediately noticeable. This was because earlier, the left front air suspension hose had been struck and severed. Later on, using a simple connector, they rejoined the two damaged air lines, instead of replacing the entire hose, because replacing the full air suspension hose would require extensive disassembly. The two of them worried that once certain chassis components were removed, they might not go back together perfectly, so they chose the simplest repair solution. At this stage, they began checking each circuit to find the broken line. Eventually, they traced it all the way to the trunk. Luxury vehicles like this one are equipped with multiple battery systems. They separate accessory power consumption entirely from the engine's starting battery. Otherwise, relying on a single battery, the load and wear would be excessive. In the end, they finally located the source of the problem. Surprisingly, the issue was indeed in the trunk. What he removes at this moment is actually a battery power distribution circuit breaker. For a component like this, there is no need to buy the Rolls-Royce original part. You can simply purchase it from a local auto parts store. And if it is unavailable there, the same part can also be sourced from BMW. Without any jump starting, the vehicle now starts smoothly. This confirms that the repair was successful. Next, they connect the diagnostic computer to clear all fault codes from the system. At this moment, Billy also opens the diagnostic software and checks the air suspension system. Wait, the front end is lifting. Look, it is already rising exactly as it should. The front wheels are not clearly visible. Once the splitter is installed, you can clearly feel that the ride height has increased. Come, take a look from this side. Is it not obvious now? At this point, the vehicle's engine system has also been confirmed to be fault-free. Moreover, the entire left front section, including the shock mounts and related components, has been fully repaired. Thus, the remaining work is relatively straightforward. That is, reinstalling the exterior body panels, including replacing all the damaged doors on this side. Some viewers might wonder, is this step truly necessary? Why not simply take those panels, paint them separately, and then reinstall them directly? In fact, this is not redundant at all, because at this stage, once the panels are mounted on the car, the body gaps can be precisely adjusted. After all the gaps are properly aligned, the panels can then be repainted. Otherwise, if adjustments are made afterward, the fresh paint may easily be damaged again. Especially the left front door of this vehicle. After the impact on the left side, the left front door suffered extensive scraping and damage. As a result, this left front door was pushed rearward from its original position. Under such force and conditions, the door hinges were inevitably bent. Billy and Simon also removed all of the side trim pieces. Inside here, there is a large amount of thick foam material. Its purpose is to keep the cabin exceptionally quiet, serving as high-level sound insulation. It's right here. They are also peeling back sections of adhesive tape, as they need to locate the hinge mounting points. At first, they believed that loosening these bolts with tools would allow them to shift the hinge forward. However, after comparing the panel gaps and trying to locate the correct position manually, they found it difficult to pinpoint. In the end, opting for a more direct approach, they chose the hammer. That said, when striking, they first wrapped the hinge area with protective tape, then used a block of wood to brace it and push it forward. Here, they use a small wooden strip to measure the door gap on the right side, and then compare it against the left side. As long as the alignment is still off, they continue to tap it further forward. This process requires repeated fine adjustments until the gap between the front and rear doors becomes uniform and consistent, matching the right side of the body as closely as possible. Here, they prepare to install the left front fender. There are numerous mounting brackets for the fender. Previously, the upper side beam in this area had also undergone welding repair. On this side, the inner fender liner has been removed, allowing us to see clearly that a large amount of sound-deadening material is installed here as well. Moreover, within the gap between the fender and the body, there is a substantial block of soundproof foam. When it comes to our own vehicles, we often think a few vibration damping panels are sufficient, yet when you observe how others do it, you see just how many layers are used for sound insulation. Sometimes, simply adding a few damping sheets inside a door does not produce a particularly noticeable improvement. It is not that there is no effect at all, there is some improvement. But when it comes to overall vehicle sound insulation, it is not something a few damping panels alone can significantly accomplish. They serve only a partial, supporting role. At this stage, nearly all exterior body panels have now been temporarily installed. The headlights, however, are not yet fitted. They then carefully inspect the doors, along with the gaps between the fender and the doors, as well as the hood to body gaps, to ensure everything is even. Once they confirm that there are no issues, they remove all of these panels again, carefully sand each piece, and prepare them for painting. Do not assume it is only these few panels that require a painting. This vehicle, in reality, will need to be almost entirely resprayed. There are simply too many damaged areas. Some sections suffered only minor impacts, yet without repainting, they would remain unacceptable. As for the largest surface, of course, it's still this door here, along with the hood as well, these remaining exterior panels, so that, when painting this car, the result can be as close to perfect as possible. The two lads completely cleaned and reorganized their paint booth. All of the filter cotton underneath was replaced, and every trace of remaining dust was thoroughly removed. I believe I've mentioned before how a professional paint booth is constructed. The entire ventilation and extraction system is actually located beneath the floor, through several channels below. Air is continuously drawn upward from underneath. This prevents dust from rising and floating around. Additionally, before the actual painting began, they even sprayed the entire booth with water once again, also to stop dust from lifting and sticking to the paint surface. When working on other cars in the past, they honestly weren't this meticulous. They even said, after seeing the finished paint, that this was the best paintwork they had ever completed. Here, they wiped down the left rear door to show everyone whether there is any color difference. This is Rolls-Royce's 4-layer paint system. And over here, they're working on the pillar, specifically the lower section that was pushed and deformed. From my personal experience, this area should be disturbed as little as possible, because the entire body structure is made of aluminum, not steel. If you try to pull it outward any further, this small area becomes very difficult to correct, simply because there's so little space. And with aluminum like this, once it has been welded even slightly, pulling or stretching it further can easily cause the metal to tear. So from the outside only, they gently tap and reshape the surface, carefully hammering it back into form. As for the inside, they leave it mostly untouched, using a small amount of filler to smooth it out. There's no concern about rust anyway. I remember a long time ago, probably 3 or 4 years back, I once shared a Rolls-Royce repair with everyone. At that time, the vehicle itself had no structural deformation. However, replacing the panel with a brand new part was simply too expensive. So, they decided to attempt repairing the original door instead. After all, it was made entirely of aluminum. You could pull it outward once, and it would temporarily spring back into shape. But not long after that, it would slowly collapse inward again. There was simply no way to fully solve the problem. So in the end, the solution they chose was to apply body filler across a large section of the door. Otherwise, the only alternative would be a far more expensive route, cutting away the damaged front portion and welding in an entirely new section. Honestly, who could say that would be worth it? Here you can see the rear fully disassembled. The rear bumper and taillights have all been removed. Over here, the fuel filler door has also been taken off. Unfortunately, it was dropped onto the ground. In fact, when dealing with the fuel filler door, it's common practice to remove it completely and use it as a reference color sample. It can then be used during paint mixing for comparison. Because sometimes, paint mixers at ordinary shops simply don't have sufficient experience. In those cases, seasoned specialists must be brought in to help. At this point, all of the interior door panels have been removed. Because this vehicle requires repainting across many surfaces, several of the doors will need to be resprayed as well. Have you noticed, along the body, that blue waistline stripe? This is the one people often talk about, the famous waistline said to be worth 100,000 yuan. However, when it comes to this particular car, the two of them believe the waistline cannot be preserved, because the entire body needs to be repainted. And once the repaint is done, this waistline will inevitably disappear. In the end, the only part of the original line left would be a tiny section near the rear fender, which really holds little meaning at all. So, in their later plans, they have no intention of recreating this waistline. Instead, they plan to remove it entirely. That said, many viewers have commented, telling them, "You really should redo this waistline, because it perfectly complements the interior." The colors and tones blend together beautifully, giving the car a far more refined and dignified presence. However, Simon was focused on a different issue. He explained that earlier, while removing the door, he needed to pry off some of the exterior plastic covers, since the entire car was going to be repainted. At that moment, he did not want to remove the interior door panel, so he chose to pry from the outside instead. During that process, he accidentally cut into the glass. At this point, the interior panel could no longer be avoided. It had to be removed after all. These are exactly the kind of unexpected damages that can occur during disassembly. With no other option, another piece of glass had to be paid for. The conversation then returned to the taillight and how it is removed. Imagine a Rolls-Royce worth such a fortune, yet the rear taillight is secured by just a single screw. Their cost-cutting truly borders on the absurd. Almost unbelievable. How can a taillight be held in place by only one screw? So that a single turn releases it completely. Shouldn't the entire rear section need to be disassembled before the taillight can be removed? Judging by this alone, we might even refuse to buy the car. The taillight removal is far too simple, hardly befitting its price tag. Next, the entire rear-view mirror assembly is removed. Inside it are rain sensors, along with various other monitoring components. Now the entire front windshield must be pushed out. In any case, the windshield will be replaced later on. At this stage, the two of them are already fully capable of replacing the front windshield on their own. First, a layer of base adhesive is applied. The new windshield has not arrived yet this time, since the car will be repainted regardless. This area is simply temporarily protected with plastic sheeting. After the paintwork is completed, the glass can be installed later without issue. As for the other components, they are carefully placed on storage racks. You can see cloth laid out underneath to prevent any damage to the interior. In procedures like this, unexpected issues are always hard to predict. Sometimes, when luck turns against you, you never know when you might accidentally hit or damage something. So this entire situation really comes down to sheer bad luck. At the moment, all of the car's exterior panels that require repainting have already been removed. At the same time, the roof section also needs to be repainted. Later on, it will be covered and protected with plastic sheeting. Then the car will be washed again and sent back into the paint booth. There is still a long series of steps to complete. On top of that, the paint layers on this car are quite thick, which means the painting process itself is also a real test of their skill. As for color matching, personally, I think that for them, this won't pose any major challenge. Here, we can see the giveaway event that these two guys have been running for quite some time. This is the prize for the next episode. Honestly, they really are well funded. Two cars like these, and both of them are Nismo editions. These are definitely not standard models. And this time, before even giving away the trailer, they're also planning to give away a trailer as well. Alright then, today's video will be shared with you up to this point. We hope that everyone who enjoyed the video will give it a like, leave a comment, follow, and save it. Until the next episode, we'll see you again. Thank you all friends for watching.